Hi, Anne-Marie, and thank you so much for joining us on the Prana Mamas group to tell us more about your experience of um, conception, pregnancy, birthing, and more recently, your time with your new baby, Jay. So we'd love to hear all about it. So let's just start from the beginning, Anne-Marie, and tell us a bit about um, your journey to pregnancy.
Absolutely. I was going to say it has been a bit of a journey as well, I guess, from kind of the initial stages of, yeah, let's get married. Yeah, let's have a baby. And then a couple of years on and there's still no baby. I guess, it's quite common for a lot of couples now to go through this. And I guess everybody kind of deals with things differently. Myself and my husband Simon have always been very open and honest with people about what we've gone through to have our baby. Other people are different and prefer a more private life, and that's fine. But I do kind of personally feel that because other people have been so open and honest with us, it has really, really helped us. So if I can kind of share our story a little bit, it might help other people as well. So yeah, we had been trying for a baby for a couple of years. I was always very laid back about it, not being overly maternal at all. I thought it'll happen when it happens. And as I said, it had been a couple of years, and then we kind of thought, maybe we should look into this a little bit more to see if there are any underlying problems that are preventing us from getting pregnant. So myself and my husband went along to our local GP, and they referred us to the fertility clinic in Aberdeen. Pretty quickly, we got an appointment and went in for some initial checks. They were very, very thorough, went through medical family history and diet, lifestyle, everything. My husband's results came back all clear, and mine came back to confirm that I had a low ovarian reserve, which is basically my ovaries weren't producing eggs. So it was pretty clear from then that conception was going to be difficult for us, near on impossible for us naturally. But we were given a 5% chance of IVF working. But we're kind of very fortunate actually that we live in this area that Aberdeen has a slightly lower criteria to meet before you're entitled to IVF on the NHS. And I was just on the cusp of that. So it meant we were entitled to one cycle of IVF on the NHS. So we kind of started that journey between October and November last year. We were very, very fortunate that we sort of bypassed the waiting list, which we were told would be a year. And that was mainly because the state of my ovaries was so poor. And they thought if we waited around any longer, probably any chance of IVF working would be pretty remote. So we were really lucky that we got an appointment through within sort of 6 weeks, and we started on the IVF journey. Unfortunately, IVF didn't work for us. My ovaries just didn't respond to the stimulants at all. And at the end of like the stimulation part of the process, I still only had one egg on one ovary, and that was it. So it was a tough time. Lots of different feelings and emotions. Myself, my husband, openly discussed things and got other people's opinions on things as well, close family members. Egg donation was sort of mentioned by the hospital as well as an option. But we decided we would go ahead and try IUI, which is insemination basically. So that was suggested as a bit of a potluck shot, to be honest. We were told that the chances of it working would be pretty remote, but it meant that it would protect our one IVF cycle, and we would try IVF again in January. So we did the IUI on the 4th of December last year, and it worked. So yes, to everybody's shock, I got a positive pregnancy test result within 14 days. We had an early scan at 7 weeks back at the fertility clinic, and everything was looking great. So yeah, from that point, it was all excitement, and everything that had gone before had kind of been forgotten about. we were just excited to be finally pregnant and starting the pregnancy journey.
Great. So tell us now about what it was like for you being pregnant, having gone through the IVF and it been successful.
Yeah.
How were you feeling after that then?
Yeah, so obviously very excited. Both me and my husband were chuffed a bit. Pretty much from the start, I started to feel unwell. The normal sort of morning sickness, which my mum had told me, she experienced with both me and my brother. So it was inevitable that I was going to feel some morning sickness as well. But my sickness was morning, noon, and night, and it went on for the full entirety of the pregnancy, which wasn't very fun. But I was on medication and everything to kind of deal with that as well. And actually, for me, lockdown was a bit of a blessing in some respects. Shame that I didn't get, to spend as much time with my mom while I was pregnant and see close family and friends. But at the same time, when I was probably feeling my worst, I wasn't having, that fast-paced life of commuting to work and other activities after work, and just a busy lifestyle, which I normally lead. So actually, lockdown was a bit of a blessing for me. And it meant I could just take a slower pace, take more care of myself, and just, slow down and just sort of enjoy the pregnancy as much as I could. I was working from home for that time as well. It was quite warm. I had the normal sort of symptoms, swollen feet, sore wrists, a lot of symptoms that people generally don't tell you about, or you don't read about anyway. And it was actually while I was pregnant that I joined your pregnancy yoga class online.
I remember you feeling very sick a lot of the time. Swollen ankles.
I know. But actually that class was an absolute blessing, because during lockdown there were no groups, there were no antenatal classes or anything like that going. So it was actually brilliant to be able to log on a Wednesday night and at the start of the class share how we were feeling, talk about our emotions and what we'd experienced that week. And it was just a great opportunity for us to check in with ourselves, but also to hear how other mums to be were feeling as well. So yeah, that was really, really great. So yeah, the pregnancy, it felt like a lifetime at the time, but now looking back, it passed in a flash. It passed so quickly. Although it was lockdown, I still had the normal midwife checks and went through all the sort of the normal tests that you'd go through as well. So during our 12-week scan, which fortunately my husband Simon was able to come in with me, which was great. They tried to measure the neck measurement in the baby, which can be an indicator of Down syndrome. But they weren't able to take that measurement just because of the position that the baby was in. So that was fine. We kind of didn't really think a whole lot of it. We were then offered a blood test at, I think it was around 17 weeks, which we took. And again, didn't think too much of it. And then had a phone call from a midwife in Aberdeen maternity hospital to say that the blood test had come back at a 1 in 46 chance of Down syndrome. Again, we were quite shocked at that. Spoke to lots of friends and family members who had recently had babies to see, what sort of, ratio did they have? What chance did they have when they had that test? And it was an absolute mixture of different numbers kind of thrown out there. And a lot of people had said to me, it's just a number. It doesn't really mean anything. It could go either way. Like, you just don't know. And during that phone call with the midwife, we were offered to make an appointment for an amniocentesis, which would be more of a diagnostic test to kind of, I don't think it's 100% accurate, but it would give a better indicator of whether the baby was going to have Down syndrome or not. But because my husband and I had gone through the IVF and IUI, we decided that actually any chance of miscarriage, we just weren't willing to take. It could have been my only chance of being pregnant, so I just didn't want to risk that. And we kind of dismissed the idea of going for a private harmony test as well. We had the resources and means, very fortunate in that respect, to have the choice to pay for that private test had we wanted to. But we sort of decided that it wouldn't change anything anyway. And, you know, all the decisions we'd made up until that point had been the low risk decisions. And we just felt that it wouldn't change anything. We wanted to enjoy the pregnancy. And we just agreed that actually we would put that back to the back of our minds, and we would get on with the rest of the pregnancy. And we would play with whatever cards we were dealt, really, as parents.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So the remainder of the pregnancy flew by. I was still being sick. It wasn't an enjoyable time for me. It wasn't an enjoyable time for me, to be honest. But I guess a lot of pregnant ladies are the same. You know, it's a happy time, but you don't feel great a lot of it. So, but yeah, that was the pregnancy, really.
Good. Okay. And nice that you kind of forged some connections with other pregnant women through the pregnancy yoga. So that was great. And so nice that you took this approach to your your testing results, that you're ready for a baby, you'd gone through the IVF, and whatever the outcome would have been anyway, you'd have still continued with your pregnancy, and so there was no need to really do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess everyone's different from that perspective. I guess if you had other kids, you might want to find out, so you can be ready for that and prepared as much as you can. But because we didn't have that, and Simon and I are fairly laid back and easy ozy, kind of going through life, and whatever challenges are thrown our way, we deal with them. And we just kind of adopted that attitude, and we were just fortunate to be pregnant.
Yeah, good, great. So tell us what happened next. What about your labour and birthing experience? What was that like?
So yeah, I was prepared for a natural birth. As part of your yoga classes, I've been practicing the breathing techniques out with the classes. Myself and Simon had signed up to a hypnobirthing, just an online course as well, which I thought was really helpful, actually. Probably more so for Simon to kind of understand, how the female's anatomy works during birth, and why the up breathing, down breathing are so important, and things like that. So that was really good. So we went through that, and I was still quite adamant a natural birth. But then it became apparent that the baby just hadn't moved. So Jay was actually transverse, so breech, but transverse across my tummy. And he was like that for pretty much the whole pregnancy. And, he moved, he wriggled, but it wasn't how I expected it to feel, to be honest. The midwife, every time I went for my appointment, she was asking, is the baby kicking a lot? And I was like, yes, but it's more a movement. He probably wasn't as active as I had expected him to be. But again, that was probably down to the fact that I was working from home. I was sitting at a desk probably for a lot longer than I should have been. I probably, I wasn't as mobile as I would have been had we not been in lockdown.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he was a big baby as well. So yeah, the movement wasn't what I expected. But again, everything, all the other tests that we had came back fine. We went for our 20-week scan, which was a bit of an experience because at that time we were in lockdown, so Simon wasn't allowed to be there with me. He had to FaceTime from the car, which was, looking back, I probably should have been more nervous about that than I had been. I think we go into things a little bit blasé. And fortunately, they did a thorough check of the baby, and again, there was no issues found. And at that stage, because often babies with Down syndrome can have quite serious heart conditions, I thought, well, at the 20-week scan, the fact they've not picked up any problems, chances are the baby's not going to have Down syndrome. And that was kind of, what we thought. So again, we just followed the process, went to the midwife, spoke about the birth plan. And I said, look, I know the baby hasn't turned, so I'm quite open to things now. Deep down, I had my heart set on a natural birth. I wanted to be in Inverurie. I didn't want to be in hospital in Aberdeen. But in the end, that's where we ended up. We did have an appointment booked to turn the baby, which we went along to, and we actually asked the consultant to remeasure the baby. I just didn't have a great feeling when we turned up for the appointment, and luckily enough, Simon stepped in and just ask the consultant, look, before you start the procedure, let's just remeasure the baby, confirm that it is going to be a big baby, and see what it's actually looking like in terms of whether it was actually going to be viable to turn the baby or not. So I think had I turned up for that appointment on my own, I probably would have just gone through the procedure and not challenged things. So I guess that's one message I'd like to get across, is that, you know, ask the questions, get as much information as you can, and actually it's okay to challenge the medical professionals as well. And you just have to go with your gut. If you don't feel comfortable with something, then don't do it. And actually you do have time to make decisions as well. At a lot of the scans, you know, you're sort of told all this information on the spot, you go speak to a doctor, and then you're asked, right, okay, what do you want to do? But actually you need to take your time and think it through and discuss it with your husband or your birth partner, and just decide what is actually going to be best for you.
And gathering the information we talked about yesterday, giving yourself to gather the information, not just from one source, but perhaps other sources as well that you're comfortable coming from.
That's it. So I mean, we didn't go through with the procedure in the end to get the baby turned, and the consultant had remeasured the baby, confirmed that Jay was going to be big, and said there was no point actually attempting the procedure anyway, and there wasn't really a whole lot of room to turn the baby. So after that, it was looking like our only option really was going to be a planned cesarean, which again completely freaked me out. I've not spent any time in hospital for myself, not had any operations or anything. But, you know, we spent another weekend sort of dwelling on it, kind of writing down the pros and cons of going for a natural birth, having an induction, or just going for the planned section. And actually, because I do like to be in control, I felt that actually the planned section was going to be the best option for me to sort of be in control, because I've made that decision and I know what's going to happen, and actually the lowest risk option for both myself and the baby. So that's what we went for. And actually it meant I could prepare for the date and the time. We had the appointment, rather than let nature take its course and then potentially end up with a planned section anyway. So yeah, that's what we decided to do. So on the 19th of August, we went into Aberdeen Maternity Hospital, all prepared for the section. So again, the breathing techniques came in very well for me, because I was very, very anxious. I'd been really calm sort of when we were waiting in the waiting room for a few hours. I was excited that we were going to get to meet the baby, and actually, because I hadn't been feeling that great in the pregnancy, you know, the later stages of pregnancy, I was I had the biggest bump ever. My bump was huge. I couldn't sleep very well. Turning over in bed was just a nightmare and things. So I was just at that stage where I had been so uncomfortable that I just wanted to birth the baby. I wanted the baby out. So yeah, I was focusing on that during the day. And then when we got called for our time slot through in theatre, that was us. Simon got taken through to get his scrubs on, and I got taken through by the midwife to start the anaesthetic and get the epidural in and everything. And to say I was overwhelmed was an understatement. I don't think I'd really thought through how it was going to be in theatre. There was just so many people, and everybody was brilliant. You know, the staff were absolutely amazing. The care we got was second to none. But that initial, you walk into this room and you're just confronted with all these people coming up and introducing themselves to you and telling you what their role is going to be during the procedure. And I just got completely overwhelmed, and I couldn't even tell them what was wrong. I just got really upset. And yeah, I just don't know. It was just so overwhelming, the whole experience. And it wasn't until one lady said to me, look, you're going to have to calm down now because your blood pressure is just going through the roof. And I thought, oh, okay. And I just snapped out of it and thought, right, okay, focus. We need to get this done.
Yes, and you gave yourself an affirmation at that point, didn't you? What was it you said to yourself?
Yeah, that's it. Gave myself a talking to and thought, right, focus now. Focus on the breathing. calm yourself down. And that's what I did. And that is what happened. By the time my husband was back in the room, I was a lot calmer and I was ready to start the procedure.
And I remember you telling me that the affirmation that you used, it was, it's okay because I'm going to meet my baby today.
Yeah, that's it. And that's all you could focus on in that moment. You just had to focus on the fact you were there to meet your baby, and that's exciting and that's happy. It should be a happy, exciting time. And you know what, everybody in that theatre were so calm and collected. It was me that was making it something it wasn't. I think it was just something in my head that was just quite anxious. But as soon as I started focusing on that we were going to be meeting our baby, and that, you know, that was it. It was calm, and everything sort of flowed from there.
Yes, because the reality of the situation is that the people are there to help you. They're trained, they're professionals, they're ready to greet you. They're all equipped. Yet our mind can be just flying off in all sorts of crazy directions and totally changing the perspective, when actually, when we come back to that center, that calm, and that is what gives us the inner strength to keep going with the situation. And then when all that settles, how did it go then for you?
For me, it was absolutely fine after that. But I think it's the actual, you're handing yourself over to a group of people to be completely vulnerable. And that's what I think where my anxiousness came from, I think. Is that you have to trust these people. And as you say, they knew exactly what they were doing. They were brilliant support to myself and Simon in that theatre. And then when Jay finally made an appearance, they were just brilliant. We were taken through there about 2:00, and Jay arrived at 27 minutes past 3. So it wasn't even a long procedure, you know, it was in and out, very straightforward. Yeah, done with so much care as well, and attention. So yeah, as soon as I started focusing on things, it was totally fine. When Jay was born, we had told them that we didn't know if the baby was going to be a boy or a girl. So we wanted them to tell us that pretty quickly, and also tell us if the baby had Down syndrome. We naively sort of thought that they would be able to tell us that as soon as the baby was born, but actually Jay had a few indicators that would suggest that he may have Down syndrome, but it wasn't conclusive. So it was something that they would have to do a further genetics blood test to be able to confirm that. So from that point forward, again, we went into this whole feeling of unease and unrest, because you just assume you're going to birth a perfect, healthy baby and everything's going to be rosy. But actually, so many babies can be born with different health issues. So we just kind of carried on trying our best to enjoy the new baby bubble, but with obviously a dark cloud hanging over us of a potential diagnosis of Down syndrome. So after the theatre, we were taken through to the recovery ward, which again, the care was just brilliant, and at that stage it was all very relaxed. Simon got to stay with me, fortunately, probably for a lot longer than he would have done had we not had the diagnosis hanging over us. So that was good as well. I wasn't left on my own with a new baby and not really knowing what our future was going to be. So, but again, all the staff were brilliant. From there, we went through to the labour ward, Ashgrove ward at Aberdeen Maternity Hospital. And again, the care and attention we got was brilliant. We were fortunate again to get our own room, and we had some brilliant staff that showed me straight away how to breastfeed and what I should be looking for. And I guess I probably didn't do as much research as maybe some other mums to be do, but I just kind of took it in my stride. And yeah, luckily Jay latched on, and that was kind of the start of our breastfeeding journey as well, which was great. And then the days following Jay's birth are a bit of a blur. So he was born on the Wednesday, and on the Thursday he was taken straight away for a heart scan. So as I said earlier, babies with Down syndrome can often have serious heart conditions. So the fact he was taken for this heart scan so soon was a relief, really. And that confirmed that he has no heart issues, which was brilliant. He also had his hearing checked, which again is just a typical newborn baby test that they do anyway. But because Jay had been a C-section birth, he failed the hearing test. So again, they did a repeat test the following day and he failed it again. So at that stage, we were a little bit nervous about his hearing. On the Thursday, they also took a blood test to be sent to genetics as well, and that was going to be the diagnostic for Down syndrome. So yeah, it was a lot to happen and it was all quite overwhelming. I think
what helped you through that time, that kind of time where you weren't quite sure? You and Simon.
It's funny because myself and Simon kept looking at Jay and saying, yeah, we think you will have Down syndrome, and then we'd look at him again and think, no, I don't see it. So we were both in limbo. It did completely just pull the rug from under our feet, to be honest. At that time as well, Simon was still sort of trying to work as well, and everybody wants to know your new baby news, and everybody says, oh, I hope everyone's well, and you think, well, yeah, the baby is well, we think it is, but actually we've got this diagnosis hanging over us as well. So that was a bit of a strange one, knowing what to tell people or how much to tell people. But as I said from the start, we've been open and honest with people, so we decided we would treat this in the same vein as well, and just be open with people that actually, yes, Jay's healthy, but we don't know what the future is going to hold for him. But it took within 5 days, we had his Down syndrome diagnosis confirmed to say that he does have trisomy 21, which is, I believe, one of the most common forms of Down syndrome you can have. But he has gone through so many tests already. He's 3 months old now, and he's got a clean bill of health, which is the main thing.
That's great. And can you because when we spoke, Anne-Marie, I was so kind of inspired by how positive you were with the whole situation, and obviously getting a Down syndrome diagnosis for your new baby would be confusing and bring up all sorts of different thoughts and feelings. So how did you feel on his diagnosis, and what helped you, and where are you with it now?
So it was a shock to both myself and my husband when we had it confirmed that Monday. And I guess it was almost like a grief. You almost grieve for the baby that you think you're going to have. We obviously love Jay to bits, and we would not change him for the world now. But you, as I said before, you just think you're going to have a baby and everything's going to be absolutely fine with the baby. But actually we're thrown this curveball that, things might not go smoothly for us. But the main thing is that he's in good health. And I think that's all we can focus on just now. And the day that we had the diagnosis confirmed, we were both very upset. And just a overwhelming feeling of sadness for Jay, that we don't want other people to treat him differently. And we want to make sure he's got the same opportunities as any typical baby, toddler, child will have. And we will do our hardest to make sure that is the case. And I think that's all we can focus on, really. And I said to my husband as well, I don't want this diagnosis to spoil the newborn baby phase either. It did take the edge off the excitement and everything, I'll be honest. But I said to everybody, he's great. He's our baby. We didn't think we were going to have a baby. He is our little miracle. So, and I think that's kind of what pulled us through. But the support we had as well was just absolutely brilliant. Right from the start, we were given an information pack with his diagnosis. And there was an email address on there for a local Down syndrome support officer who we contacted. From that, we were then put in touch with various resources, one of which was the Positive About Down Syndrome charity, who was set up, who Nicola Enoch set up. And from there, we've got such a great support network of parents who have Down syndrome babies as well, which has been a great help. Just to get information, and it's a resource to go to if you've got any concerns, or being a first-time mom, sometimes a bit confusing if you've got a concern about something.
Yeah.
The first thought is, well, is this a newborn baby issue or is this a Down syndrome issue?
Yeah.
So, and we've been very fortunate that we've had a great health visitor as well, who's really supported with the feeding, because Jay did lose a lot of weight when he was first born as well. So very supportive for me to continue breastfeeding, but introduce high protein formula into his diet as well, which means he's now thriving. So we're lucky with that. Down syndrome Scotland have been a good resource as well. And actually just friends and family have just been so accepting that actually, yeah, it's Jay first and that's it. The Down syndrome is secondary and that's what we want it to be. But yeah,
I was really struck by, you sent me a TED talk from Nicola Enoch, who's set up the Positive About Down Syndrome Facebook and the various groups that go with that. And she'd said, you know, a Down syndrome baby just needs exactly the same, you know, love, water, food. It's exactly the same. And that's it. He's a person and just as beautiful as the next baby and deserves to be treated as such.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I struggled with in the start. You know, we didn't know enough about Down syndrome to start with. We hadn't really prepared for it. And I guess my main concern was how are things going to be different? And yeah, Nicola Enoch kind of, I contacted her. She was messaging me during the night, that Monday night when we had the diagnosis confirmed. And that's the one thing she said, you know, Jay is Jay. And he will need exactly the same things as a typical newborn baby will need. He needs feeding, he needs cuddles, you know, and just to enjoy that. And that's exactly what we've done. The next stage is now no one can tell us about. We don't know how he's going to reach the various milestones in his development. But he's a happy, cheeky, smiley.
Yeah, and you described it beautifully when you said, you know, his development with Down syndrome, you're almost taking the scenic route.
Yeah, that's it. He will get there. He will get there in his own time. And we will do everything we can to support him. So already he's seen a dietitian, speech and language therapist, physiotherapist. You know, we will do anything for if he needs anything additional.
Yeah.
But yeah, he will develop in his own time, as all babies do. So yeah, it will be the scenic route, but the journey will be worth it.
Yeah, that's good. And how's day to day for you now, Anne-Marie?
Day is hectic. It is hectic.
You look amazing.
So I have really taken to motherhood, despite having not felt maternal. Probably until Jim arrived, I had not felt maternal. It was always my husband that was the broody one. He was so eager to start a family. But actually, as soon as Jay arrived, it's unconditional love, and it's just, it's brilliant. I've thrown myself in probably at the deep end, taking him to some baby classes, which I never thought I would do.
No.
I don't know if it's because of Jay's Down syndrome diagnosis that I just feel like I have to do the best for him. So even now, just taking him to these baby classes, why shouldn't I? You know, so, and it's been great during lockdown as well, just being able to get out of the house and meet new mums as well, and shared our different stories. And I guess, you know, talking about our stories are the best thing we can do to actually share the information. You know, there's only so much you can read in a book, but actually you find out so much more just by talking to people and sharing experiences. So yeah, baby classes. The first sort of 11 weeks of Jay's life was back and forth to the hospital for various tests and checkups. But I think, you know, most of them will become annual checks now. So we're kind of over them and we can just get on with enjoying each other's company now.
Yeah, lovely. If there was another mum going through the same kind of experience as you, they'd just fallen pregnant and perhaps had received that notification like you did, what would your advice be to them at this stage? What would you say?
So I guess every mum, every family is
Mhm.
different. We made the decisions that were best for us at the time.
Yeah.
Other mums might decide to have further tests,
Mhm.
some might not. But I guess it is the main thing is knowing what your options are. I
Yeah.
think that's really important. So just finding out as much information as you can, finding out what your options are, and finding out actually what are the timescales of things. How long do you have to make a decision? I think is the important thing as well.
Mhm.
And just new mums can go through, or pregnant ladies can go through various tests and have various different potential diagnoses during pregnancy.
Mhm.
So it's not just Down syndrome. There's a vast array of conditions that they test for now during pregnancy. But as long as you're making an informed decision that's going to be right for you and your family, I think that's the main thing. But also, it's okay to challenge as well.
Yeah.
I think we kind of take it for granted that the medical professionals know best.
Mhm.
And even during this pregnancy, I found that a midwife's perspective is very different from a doctor's perspective as well. So it is just getting different opinions, finding out information, talking to family and friends before you make any decisions about your journey going forward.
And what's shone through as you've spoken today, Anne-Marie, is the fact that you've actually really trusted your gut through the whole process on every stage. And while it's good to gather the opinions and the information, you've done that, but you've also trusted yourself and your connection with your husband, and you've made the choices that have been right for you and that are right for your baby. And I think that is just so vital in life,
It is. I guess I am a very naturally decisive person.
Mhm.
However, when you're new to anything, it's difficult. So being
Mm.
a first time mum, you think, well, how will I know best? I've never done this before.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm the only person that knows my body. I'm the only person that knows my baby.
Mhm.
So it is just trusting that natural instinct that just sort of happens and takes over as soon as the baby arrives.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been fortunate that we have just been able to trust our instinct
Yeah.
and do the best we can for ourselves
Yeah.
and for Jay.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you so much, Anne-Marie. I'm just checking if there's anything else that you were going to mention. I think yesterday you talked about, at times of transition and change, that being flexible and open to things that you weren't expecting is
Absolutely.
a really helpful characteristic to cultivate, I suppose.
Definitely. So I think, so many mums, you read all these books,
Mhm.
all the manuals and everything. The baby hasn't read it, the baby's winging it as well. So
Mhm.
it is having a balance between finding out the information, but actually being open to things changing, because things can change during pregnancy so quickly and during birth so quickly, that you need to keep in the back of your mind that things change and you need to be open to them. So you can be prepared and manage the change as best as you can. I
Mhm.
mean, the midwives ask you, I think it's around 34, 36 weeks, what your birth plan is going to be.
Mhm.
And well, a lot of women, you have your heart set on a particular,
Yeah.
whether it's natural birth or section, water birth as well,
Mhm.
different aspects like that. And but actually, the best thing you can be is just open to change, be flexible, and at the end of the day, whatever is best for you and your baby. And that's it,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, you're going to signpost us to some really useful contacts that you've found through your experience. So the Positive About Down Syndrome Facebook group, and also a very powerful TED talk done by Nicola Enoch that really transformed, was a quite transformational in your feeling and thoughts at the time.
Absolutely. I mean, just listening to Nicola Enoch speak about her experience.
Hmm.
She's got a son that has Down syndrome,
Yeah.
and she just talks about her experience during pregnancy and birth, and the character her son has become.
Mhm.
And I just think it was so inspirational. And after watching that, I just felt so much more positive about Jay's outlook. And I don't think it's, it doesn't have to be specific to Down syndrome either. As I said, babies can be born with any issue. But even just watching that, and it is just very inspirational.
Yeah.
He's such a
And
strong
he,
character, and that comes through so
yeah.
much when you watch it.
Yeah, and what comes through is that he deserves to be celebrated as much as the next baby. Every baby is unique, every mum is unique. So there's nothing different about him in that perspective, is there?
No, you're spot on with that.
Yeah.
Every baby is just an absolute blessing.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for today, Anne-Marie. We're so grateful for you talking to us. And we hope that you'll be back soon to let us know how you and Jay are getting on.
We will,
That would
definitely.
be great.
Absolutely.